Assassin's Creed Revelations. It is a game that is very close to my heart, and it has been like that for a while. But ironically, of all the Assassin's Creed games I have played, this one I haven't played recently. I have played all the other Assassin's Creed games at some point or the other, like in the last 2-3 years, but Revelations, that one I last played well back in 2014, when things were different. My life was different. Well, a lot of things have changed. I have played more games. I have grown a lot into gaming. I have a YouTube channel now. And speaking of, I would love it if you would subscribe to said YouTube channel. I mean, I'm talking about this channel. So yeah, do that. Do subscribe to the channel. But yeah, this is a game that I wanted to revisit the most when I started, this channel back up. And now I've finally done that. And well, while there are some things which I personally remember to be better, but really weren't that better, most of the things that I have seen in this game is well above what I expected them to be. I was going into this game expecting it to not be as great as I remember it to be, but no, this is still just as great as I remember it to be. So without wasting more of your time, I will get on with the video itself. For this video, I will divide the video into 4 distinct sections. Those will be the gameplay, the mission design, the modern day, and the story in general. So starting off with the first section of the video, which is the gameplay and the various improvements that were made in gameplay. Now, for me, when I first played Revelations, I always had this idea in my head that it wasn't that good with its parkour, like the environments, the designs. They weren't really good for parkour. And also, like, switching from the puppeteering system to this more, I would say it's not that much of a difference, but it's still a switch from the old puppeteering system to a more control based system. I don't know what to call it, just saying random words at this point. But yeah, this was the first game to move away from that puppeteering system, and I always held that against Revelations. But the more I actually played the game, the more I realized that it was actually a fantastic addition. Like in the older Assassin's Creed games, in say Assassin's Creed 2 or more importantly Brotherhood, if I had to switch between a tool and my hidden blade, the only way I could do it is either go via quick select or just select the tool, and that tool basically replaced my attack. Both the tool and my weapons were both part of my attack, but by having this separate tool button, like, it is understated, like it's not really that big of a change, but it helps a lot with the flow of the game. Because now, not only do I already have my hidden blades equipped or any weapon that I want to equip, I also have my gadgets equipped in a separate button. So I can quickly go and assassinate 2 guards and then throw a knife without having to fiddle with quick select, which could be a problem in the older games. Like, there were certain points in Brotherhood where I maybe messed up the button, but in Revelations I don't need to press that button that often. So I have my tool selected, I have my hidden blade selected. I pretty much always have my hidden blade selected because I'm a stealthy kind of an assassin. So yeah, it helped a lot with the flow of the gameplay, even though it wasn't that big of a change. Now, speaking of gadgets, there was a gadget that got a very in-depth system in this game, and that were the bombs. Now, the bombs in this game, they got a proper crafting system where you had to earn ingredients. Like, everything you do basically in the game gives you bomb ingredients, because with the bomb ingredients, they are in the chests. You do the assassin missions, you get those. You send out your recruits to other cities, you get bomb ingredients. Like, you keep getting bomb ingredients from absolutely everywhere. And while the system is good, while there are very unique effects with bomb crafting, it's not really necessary, because I always felt like once I had those 3 bombs, I pretty much didn't need any other type of bomb. Like, for me, I basically just wanted an impact smoke bomb, and I wanted either a sticky or a bouncing bomb, which for the distraction, for the guard distractions. That's pretty much all I required. I didn't even use the explosives all that much because once again, I'm more of a stealthy assassin. Now, that doesn't mean I can't use it, but I just didn't use it. So the thing is, while there is quite some depth to the system in terms of how you craft the bombs, in terms of what ingredients do what, and how the different things mix up to create different kind of bombs, it wasn't really that useful. I would have loved to see more implementations or more systems where this could have been more useful. In future games, if possible, I would like to see bomb crafting back, but in a way where more bombs are more useful and there are many scenarios where we are more encouraged to use those bombs. That would be, in my opinion, a good way to do it. But I would still praise it for at least the effort, for at least trying to differentiate itself from the other games in the franchise. But yeah, I have to say, even though it was good, it was pretty pointless. Now, another thing that got added in Revelations in terms of its gameplay was of course the hook blade. And I'm gonna let Yusuf explain the hook blade to you.
The standard Ottoman hook blade has two parts, you see. The hook and the blade.
Well, after that very well explained scene from Yusuf, now we come to the usefulness of the hook blade. And for that I have to say, I always was a little bit split about the hook blade, and I am still a little bit split about the hook blade. Because on one hand, it does make climbing easier, faster, and it's not like it is ruining the parkour in general. It is very useful in parkour, especially because now you can swing straight from the lamps instead of going 90 degrees. You can extend your jump with the hook blade. So yes, it added a lot of depth to the parkour system with just 2 or 3 more actions. But also, the way it works makes it so that it makes the animation cancel just that little bit difficult. And for me, it's really a trade-off. Like, I do want animation cancel to be a little bit more liberal, and it's not like you cannot do animation cancel in this game, but it's still that once you have the hook blade, that window is very short. So if you miss it, then Ezio just goes up. So there's that, but overall I would still say this was a good addition. There were more positives than there were negatives. So I will still give this a good thumbs up. So that brings up all the gameplay improvements that were made. In terms of the gameplay system itself, there are no noticeable downgrades, or any downgrades for that matter. Like, pretty much everything that was in the Ezio trilogy up to that point was maintained and new things were added to the game. And so I believe, yes, this is in fact the best gameplay system in the Ezio trilogy. At first I had my doubts, and in fact, if you even see the ranking videos that I made, I had my doubts regarding the system and I didn't rank it that high. But no, after playing it again, like as I said first, the last time I played this game was in 2014, before Unity came out. So after such a long time trying this system out and actually going in depth and trying to understand all the systems, which I honestly did not do back in the day, I wasn't that good. Yes, this is in fact the best gameplay system in the Ezio trilogy. Now, you may have an argument that, hey, Brotherhood was more balanced, or things like that, more subjective things, and you may be right from your own perspective. This, after all, is mine. This is what I feel about the game. So from my perspective, yes, Revelations definitely is the most improved game in the Ezio trilogy. I just wish they would have had the vault from Assassin's Creed 1 and it would just be perfect. Like, it is excellent, just with that one additional animation, it would have been perfect. But of course, neither of the Ezio trilogy games had the vault, and I so wish that they did, because it was such a good mechanic in Assassin's Creed 1. It's so fun. Anyway, and now I'm just talking about Assassin's Creed 1. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the gameplay improvements in Revelations. Now from that we move on to mission design. And in mission design, well, there are a few standouts. For example, all the memory seal missions where we are going after Altair's memories, all of those were great. Like, I never felt in one of those missions where the mission design is particularly bad or it is frustrating or anything like that. Comparing that to say even Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. In Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, I was actually a bit frustrated at times with some of the mission design, even though I have praised it a lot, and in fact it deserves that praise and it was very high on my ranking list. I just felt like after playing Revelations, I was reminded just how good this was as well. So yeah, I have to tip my hat to Revelations. And once again, I do think in terms of the Ezio trilogy, now I think, yeah, Revelations is pretty high up there, if not the best, in terms of its mission design, especially in the set pieces. Other than that though, there were a few like bad things. One of those bad things was the tower defense missions. The reason why I just absolutely grinded through the assassin recruit things is because I did not want to do another tower defense missions. I dislike the tower defense mission with a burning passion. Kind of like I dislike Odyssey. It is that bad to me. If you had watched my stream, there was a moment where I literally fell asleep while playing the tower defense mission. Literally the first tower defense mission that we get, like for defending the Galata den. So yeah, I do not like those missions. But other than that though, once again, as I've said before, the level design is pretty good for parkour. Other than that, I like the Master Assassin missions where you and your recruits, you essentially are training your recruits and you're going after specific missions. They were not really the best missions in Assassin's Creed, but they were pretty good. So, you know, I'll give it that. The side content I felt in Revelations was pretty decent. Even though they were not as much as Brotherhood had, they were still really cool. And another one that I want to highlight is Cappadocia, because the entire section of Cappadocia, there were some problems with the story. I will talk about those, but other than that, Cappadocia as the section in the game, at first, when I first played it, I always felt like that was a bit tacked on, but when I'm playing it now, it just feels that much better for some reason, but it does feel better. So I have to say it in the video. Well, now we are done with mission design, and now we move on to what I would say is a little bit of a question mark, which is the modern day. Now, I talked about mission design, but you might notice I didn't talk about the modern day like at all. There's a reason for that. The reason is that modern day really isn't anything like we have seen before, at least in the Ezio trilogy. And not in a good way. Like, I don't think Revelations' implementation was particularly great. And even though in terms of story, we get a lot of context. In terms of story, the modern day had a lot of content. And even though we weren't really going outside the Animus per se, we were in the Animus Island and we go into those missions where Desmond goes in. But even without that, like, the amount of content, the amount of story we got in the main story itself, and the way Desmond was involved in the main story, well, it's a lot, isn't it? So yeah, modern day for me is a big question mark, because we didn't get much, but also what we got was really good. And the story progressed a lot. And speaking of story, that is the final section of this video. And well, in story, I'm not going to say much, because I honestly can't say much. This is a phenomenal story. This is one of the best stories I have ever played in a video game. I am not exaggerating. This is not me being a fanboy. This is actually what I feel. This is one of the best stories I have ever played. I have never in a game seen 3 different storylines being told at the same time while being so interconnected and woven with such skill. You never feel like one of the storylines is being disconnected from the other. Everything makes sense. Everything is a part of the storyline. The Isu storyline, Desmond's story, Ezio story, Altair story, I guess 4 different storylines in this game are well woven together. And while some are present more than others, obviously Ezio's story takes majority of the time. Altair's story also takes a lot of time. The modern day, as I said before, there isn't really a playable modern day, like we don't go to Monteregioni, or yeah, you get the point. Even though we don't have those, and the Isu sections is basically just the ending, even with that, the way this game tells its story, the way it is structured, the way it is paced, there isn't any other game in this franchise which comes close to the story. I've said before that Valhalla has one of the best stories in this franchise. And if Valhalla had its pacing right, it may have gotten close to Revelations. But even then, I don't think even Valhalla can beat Revelations. It is that good. It is that good in terms of its Assassin Templar story. It is that good in terms of its Isu storyline. It is that good in terms of its modern day storyline. There are almost no flaws. But almost is not none. There are flaws in the story. And there are sections of the story which did make me question about Ezio's morality in general. Like Ezio, there is a contradiction between what the character says and what the character does. Because lighting up 4 or 5 ships on fire in the harbor and just assuming no innocent people died, not the correct assumption. Blowing up an entire section of gunpowder in Cappadocia, what is inside a cave, and basically asphyxiating what I'm assuming is thousands of people, not the best look for the assassins. And in a way it can be justified that Ezio himself was realizing the recklessness of his actions, and even he did realize that it was simply not worth the effort at the end. I am sure that's like, it's not exactly what my takeaway is from the story, but I can understand if that's what he learned. At the end of the day though, it's as Altair said, like, it's about having enough humility to say that I have done my part and I've seen enough for one life. And that's what Ezio realizes by the end of the story. So in a way, it does make sense that Ezio makes these mistakes and then probably realizes that not the best ideas. But also in terms of the more general Assassins and Templar conflict that was in the game, I said that it was a perfect storyline in terms of its Assassin Templar story. Because I felt Ahmed was an excellent Templar in terms of what his vision was, what he was trying to achieve. And Ezio, of course, you don't get much more assassin than Ezio. But the problem that I had, and the problem that I detailed in my stream itself, is that while both these sides have some good points, they are both being unrealistic. Like, neither the Templar side nor the Assassin side is being realistic with their ambitions here. Because the Templars thinking that, hey, if we just get everyone to obey us, and if we just get everyone to set aside their differences and just do what we tell them to do, and that will achieve peace, it will not, because that is never going to happen in an ideal world. There will always be opposition. And as for the assassins are concerned, as Suleiman said to Ezio, where, you know, it's a tapestry of multiple colors and a just leader should not seek to unravel it. That is absolutely correct. That is exactly how I felt about Ahmed. But also he says that, you know, that is why we have laws that apply equally to every people, which is once again not the case. Because in an ideal world, maybe, but in a realistic world, no. Now I know that none of this really has anything to do with the story of Revelations. Like, this is my interpretation of it. But it still bugged me a little bit that neither of the sides really acknowledge that they are talking about very ideal circumstances. And I would have liked to see them talk about it a little bit. Like, at least have a discussion about this. I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth. But I just felt like there was a slight missed opportunity there. With the story being as good as it is, it could have done a little bit more. All that said though, what do I actually think about this game? So now, ever since Assassin's Creed 1, I have taken this policy where I'm not going to rate the games, kind of chickening out at the end. So what I will say is that this is a phenomenal game. But this is also a game which will have you scratching your head in case you haven't played the other games. If you're someone for whom this is the first Assassin's Creed game, or more importantly, if you're someone who has played Odyssey, or if you're someone who has just played Valhalla and you want to experience the franchise and you hear from everyone, hey, Revelations has a really good story, and you start playing Revelations, you are going to be left with your head scratching. And so with that being said, I would say this: to properly understand and to properly enjoy Revelations, you have to play what has come before. it is important that you understand what the franchise is and what the franchise has already said before you go into Revelations. Because without that context, Revelations story can be very confusing. So this franchise is very unique, but Revelations is a unique game within it. And for that, I will always love and cherish this game. So that's what I think about Revelations. Do let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? I know a few people don't really like Revelations because it didn't really do much to set itself apart. But for me at least, I never found it a problem because I love the game so much. I don't mind doing more of it. So yeah, do let me know down in the comments below. All that said though guys, I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe to my channel, that would help. And I will leave you guys in peace.